For a century, the global auto industry was a fortress guarded by Germany, Japan, and the United States. Names like Toyota, Mercedes, Ford, and Volkswagen weren't just companies. They were the industrial heartbeats of their nations. But in the last 36 months, that fortress has been breached, and the result is an absolute bloodbath. Mercedes' profits have collapsed. Porsche's bottom line cratered. Stellantis, the giant behind Jeep and Fiat, just posted historic losses. Volkswagen is cutting tens of thousands of jobs. And standing over the wreckage is one name: BYD. A company that 20 years ago was just soldering together cell phone batteries in a Shenzhen workshop. Back then, Elon Musk literally laughed at them on live television. Today, Musk isn't laughing. BYD sells more electric vehicles than anyone on the planet, flooding markets from Southeast Asia to Europe and Latin America. The media will tell you this is a story of brilliant Chinese innovation. Harvard case studies call them the Toyota of the 21st century. But they are lying to you. BYD's dominance isn't built on a level playing field. It is built on a mountain of state-sponsored subsidies, horrific hidden debt, manipulated sales figures, and labor practices that will make your stomach turn. Today, we are ripping the curtain back. This is the real story of BYD, and why the world's biggest EV maker might just be a house of cards. To understand the deception, you have to understand the origin. BYD stands for Build Your Dreams. It was founded in 1995 by Wang Chuanfu, a 29-year-old chemist who borrowed $40,000 to build rechargeable batteries. By 2003, he had cornered the global battery market for Nokia and Motorola cell phones. That same year, Wang bought a bankrupt state-owned car factory. Investors thought he was insane. BYD's stock plummeted. Wang didn't even have a driver's license. But he knew something the legacy automakers didn't. The future of cars wasn't the combustion engine, it was the battery. He didn't just build cars, he built a vertically integrated fortress. While Ford and Volkswagen outsourced chips, glass, and motors to hundreds of vulnerable suppliers, BYD built everything in-house. They bought their own lithium mines, they manufactured their own semiconductors. In 2008, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger bought 10% of BYD for $232 million. That Western validation was the spark. But what really ignited the fire was BYD's Blade battery, a lithium iron phosphate battery that was cheaper, safer, and completely bypassed the need for expensive cobalt. On paper, it looks like a masterclass in business strategy, but vertical integration and good batteries don't conquer the globe in 3 years. To do that, you need a weapon, and that weapon was the Chinese Communist Party. Here is the truth the Western media glosses over. BYD is not a private company competing in a free market. It is the tip of the spear for Beijing's Made in China 2025 initiative. In April 2024, the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, one of Europe's top economic think tanks, published a damning report. They found that BYD received at least 3.4 billion euros or $3.7 billion in direct government subsidies to drive its massive expansion. But direct cash is just the tip of the iceberg. The Chinese government provided BYD with free land for mega factories. State-owned banks handed them bottomless zero-interest loans. They were given guaranteed public procurement contracts, meaning entire fleets of taxis and city buses in China were mandated to be BYD. Furthermore, Beijing subsidized the buyers. Every BYD sold in China came heavily pre-discounted by the state. At its peak, it is estimated that BYD was subsidized to the tune of thousands of dollars per vehicle. And think about what this means for a company like Toyota or Ford. When they price a car, they have to factor in materials, labor, R&D, and still make a profit for their shareholders. BYD does not. BYD can sell vehicles at or below the cost of production for years, simply to bleed their competitors dry, because the Chinese state quietly covers the losses. This isn't business competition, it is a state-funded siege on global manufacturing, and by the time Western politicians started talking about tariffs, the trap had already closed. But what happens when the state subsidies start to dry up? The cracks begin to show, and BYD's financial foundation is starting to look dangerously similar to China's collapsed real estate giant Evergrande. In 2025, independent research out of Hong Kong blew the lid off BYD's balance sheet. Officially, BYD reports a manageable debt load, but the reality is hidden in something called supply chain financing. In the normal automotive industry, a car manufacturer pays its suppliers within 50 to 60 days. BYD, they are reportedly taking up to 275 days, roughly 9 months, to pay the people who supply them. They are effectively using their own supply chain as an unregulated zero-interest bank. By refusing to pay their bills for 3/4 of a year, they are hiding hundreds of billions of yuan in off-balance sheet debt. They are squeezing their suppliers to death to fund their aggressive global price wars. If global sales slow down, and they are, this 9-month delay becomes a ticking time bomb. If BYD defaults on its suppliers, the entire vertically integrated ecosystem collapses overnight. Then there is the fraud of their sales figures. When BYD brags about selling millions of cars, taking the global crown from Tesla, you need to ask, who is actually buying them? Over the last 2 years, independent journalists and drone operators have uncovered massive EV graveyards outside of cities like Hangzhou and Guangzhou. Acres and acres of fields filled with thousands of brand new, unregistered, rotting BYD and Geely vehicles. The plastic is still on the seats. Weeds are growing through the tires. Why? Because of a practice called channel stuffing and the zero-mileage used car scam. And to hit their aggressive state-mandated quotas and collect government production subsidies, BYD dealerships register thousands of brand new cars to shell companies they control. On paper, that is a sale. BYD tells the investors, look, we sold 10,000 cars today. In reality, the car is driven straight from the factory to a dirt field and abandoned. It is then classified as a zero-mileage used car. They are artificially inflating their sales volume to maintain the illusion of exponential growth, creating a massive overcapacity bubble that threatens to burst. When you grow this fast on fake numbers and hidden debt, quality is the first thing to die. The Western press ignores it, but inside China, BYD is facing a crisis of quality control. In late 2024, they had to recall nearly 100,000 vehicles over a steering column defect that was causing spontaneous fires. Just a month later, another massive recall hit. Chinese social media is flooded with complaints of failing electronics, GPS systems completely crashing, and cars bricking themselves in the rain. But the darkest secret lies in how these cars are built globally. When BYD expanded to Brazil, taking over an old Ford plant in Bahia, they didn't bring prosperity. In 2024, the Brazilian Labor Ministry prosecuted BYD for keeping workers in conditions officially described in court documents as analogous to slavery. Authorities found over 160 Chinese workers whose passports had been confiscated, forced to work 14-hour shifts with 0 rest days, living in squalor. This isn't innovation, it's exploitation on an industrial scale. BYD is not a miracle of the free market, it is a financial Frankenstein. Yes, they produce massive numbers of cars. Yes, their battery technology is formidable. But their empire is built on billions in unfair government cash, off-the-books supply chain debt, fake sales numbers, padding rotting EV graveyards, and horrific labor abuses. The legacy automakers in Germany, Japan, and the US are bleeding because they are playing by the rules of capitalism, while BYD is playing a game of geopolitical conquest funded by Beijing. If you are an investor, a business owner, or just someone buying a car in 2026, you need to wake up. The rules of global trade have fundamentally changed. BYD might become the monopoly that controls the roads of the 21st century, or it might collapse under the weight of its own lies, just like Evergrande. But whatever happens, do not buy the illusion. If you want the unvarnished truth about what is actually happening in the global markets, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Drop a comment below if you've seen this kind of aggressive expansion in your own industry. I read every single one. See you in the next video.